So I figured for today's video, we can actually go over probably one of the most classic group hug decks of all time.
Wait, did somebody say group hugs? Here, scooch over. This is my time to shine. There we go. Okay, where were we?
Hello friendos, this is Shane, welcoming you back to Chain of Commander, and it is time for our Patron's Choice Deck Tech of the Month. And for this Patron's Choice Deck Tech, I brought along a special guest because this time I gave my patrons the choice to see which Liz deck they wanted to see in Deck Tech form, and in their almighty wisdom, they chose that we do the Giant Purple Hippo of Doom, Phelddagrif. Now before we get into it, for your convenience, I will put a deck list in the description to reference at your leisure. And if any of these cards seem like something you personally want to try building with, definitely use that TCG Player affiliate link in the description as well. Won't cost you a single cent more, but it will help out the channel. That said, Liz, why don't you tell us what Phelddagrif is?
Yeah, sure thing. Phelddagrif is a 4/4 legendary creature Phelddagrif for 1 and banned, so that's blue, white, green. And it has 3 abilities. The first being for green mana, Phelddagrif will get trampled until end of turn, and you'll give one of your opponents a 1/1 green hippo token. Its second ability for 1 white, Phelddagrif will get flying until end of turn, and you'll give one of your opponents 2 life. And the third final ability for 1 blue mana, you can return Phelddagrif to your hand, and target opponent may draw a card.
Alright, so Phelddagrif is historically known for a very particular type of deck known as Group Hug, where in lieu of trying to take away your opponent's advantages, you want to just share the love and make sure everybody has a chance to play Magic. And this deck is no different. So let's just dive in to what we're working with here and start where I start all of my deck techs, with the ramp. Alright, to start off our ramp here, we're going to start with the Search for Tomorrow.
Search for Tomorrow, you're going to get a basic from your deck, and it also has Suspend.
And then we have a couple that are seen quite often together. We have Cultivate and Kodama's Reach.
You're going to get 1 basic to hand and 1 basic to the field.
And then we have a couple of creatures here. We got Secure Tribe-Elder,
which you can sack for a basic.
And we have Veteran Explorer.
It's a 1/1. When it dies, everybody gets 2 basics to the field.
Right, and then we have a Mana Rock in Chromatic Lantern.
Yep. Gives you 1 mana and also makes all your lands tap for any color.
And then we actually have another Mana Rock, but this one's more on the Group Hug side of things with Spectral Searchlight.
Yep, it's a Mana Rock that you can add 1 mana of any color and you can give that to anybody.
Alright, and then last thing we have here is a pretty cool enchantment in Oath of Lieges.
Yeah, Oath of Lieges, at everybody's upkeep, they check if an opponent has more lands than them, and if an opponent has more lands, they go get Search of a basic.
So excellent ways to make sure the entire table is ramping as a group. But how do we make sure we have things to cast with all this mana we have at our disposal? Alright, in terms of card advantage, we have many things to make sure our hand remains full. We have things like Coiling Oracle.
You're going to look at the top card of your library, and if it's a land, it goes onto the field, and if it's another card, you draw it. And
then we also have Urban Evolution.
You're going to draw 3 cards, and you have an extra land drop for the turn.
Then we have Fact or Fiction.
You're going to give your top 5 cards of your library to opponent, and they're going to put them into 2 piles, and you get to pick one of those piles to add to your hand.
Then we have Pendant of Prosperity.
When it enters, you're going to give it to an opponent, and when that opponent taps it, they're going to draw a card who can play a land, and you get to do the same thing.
And Secret Rendezvous.
You and a target opponent each draw 3 cards.
Great ways to not only draw cards, but make some friends at the table. Then we have Windfall.
Everybody's going to discard their hand and draw cards equal to whoever had the greatest hand.
And then Blue Sun Zenith.
Target player gets to draw X cards.
Then we have some ways to get things back from the graveyard in Eternal Witness.
You just get to return any card from your graveyard to your hand.
And Skullwinder.
Just like Eternal Witness, you get a card back from your graveyard, but opponent also gets a card back from their graveyard.
Then we also have Memory's Journey.
You're going to be able to shuffle up to 3 cards from target graveyard into that person's library, and it's got flashback. Alright,
so great one-time ways to get some card advantage, but then we have some ways to maintain card advantage throughout the game, but it's for everybody. So we have Kami of the Crescent Moon.
Everybody's going to draw an extra card at their beginning of their turn.
Same thing with Howling Mine. You get to draw something at the start of the turn. Then we also have Rites of Flourishing.
My personal favorite card. Everybody's going to draw an extra card at the beginning of their turn, and they get to play an additional land.
Yes, indeed. And then we have Temple Bell.
I'm going to tap it. Everybody's going to draw a card.
And Jace Bellerin.
Great party Jace. Everybody's going to draw a card when you plus it, and you get to have target player draw a card if you minus it.
And you can always target yourself. which I'll be doing most of the time. Horde of Greed.
When you play a land, you get to draw a card.
And then we have two things that aren't naturally card advantage on their own, but I really didn't know where else to put them on this list. In Clever Impersonator.
This is a clone that you can make a non-land permanent.
And Rate of Replication.
You can make a clone, or when you kick it, you can get 5 clones.
5 whole clones. And some of you might recall I've had a video on some of my favorite things to click with Rate of Replication, so definitely make sure you check that out after this video. But yeah, now everybody's got lands, everybody's got cards, but if we're giving our opponents cards, they're likely going to be casting some things that we don't really want to see on the table. So what do we have in our deck to help handle those? Alright, now depending on what the threat at the table might be, we have plenty of ways to handle some problematic permanents. When it comes to creatures, we have things like Path to Exile.
You're going to exile a creature, and that player's going to get a land.
Swords to Plowshares.
You're going to exile a creature, and that player's going to gain some life.
Gwafa-Hazed.
He's pretty much, you put a bribery counter on creatures and they can't attack or block, and the controller will draw a card.
And Intrepid Hero.
You can tap it to destroy a creature with power 4 or greater.
And then if the issue is artifacts or enchantments, we have things like Nature's Claim.
You're going to destroy an artifact or enchantment, that player's going to get 4 life.
Trigon Predator.
When it deals combat damage, you get to destroy an artifact or enchantment that player controls.
Forsake the World.
You're going to exile an artifact or enchantment. It also has cycling.
Return to Dust.
You're going to exile either 1 artifact or enchantment if you don't play it during your main phase, or if you do play it during your main phase, you're going to exile 2.
And Pier's Whim.
You're pretty much going to choose friend or foe. Always friend for yourself. Friends are going to ramp. Foes are going to have to sack an artifact or enchantment.
So if you ever need to try to make more friends at the table, you can always count them as a friend, I guess. And then if we need to just handle really anything, we have things like Oblivion Ring.
Exile a non-land permanent until a ring leaves the field.
Beast Within.
Destroy anything, and that person gets a 3/3 beast.
Release to the Wind.
You're going to exile a permanent, which can later be recast for free.
I really like that one because it can go 2 directions. It can be a temporary removal for your opponent's stuff, or if you have anything that has an enemy battlefield trigger, you can do that or use it as protection for your own stuff. That is a really versatile card, and I don't think it sees enough play in Commander. But moving on, we have Council's Judgment.
Everyone's going to vote for a non-land permanent that you don't control, and the most votes are tied for the most votes will get exiled.
And then Eye of Doom!
When Eye of Doom enters the battlefield, everybody's going to pick a non-land permanent, and they're all going to get a Doom counter, and then you can sack Eye of Doom and destroy all those permanents.
And then if the board just gets a bit too big and out of control, we do have several board wipes in this deck. We have Terminus.
It's a board clear with Miracle, and it puts all the creatures on the bottom of their owner's library.
Day of Judgment.
Just to destroy all creatures.
Aetherize.
It's going to bounce attacking creatures to their opponent's hand.
And Cyclonic Rift.
You're going to bounce not all non-land permanents your opponent's control if you overload it, or you can just use it as targeted removal to bounce something.
A classic board clear, so plenty of ways to interact with the board in such a way that I enjoy and like. And you know what else I like? I like it when you like my videos. It's like a giant circle of like that feeds off each other. So make sure you hit that like button in the corner if you've been enjoying this so far. But we're interacting with our opponents. There's no doubt they're going to be trying to interact with us as well. So what do we have in this deck to kind of persuade them not to? Alright, as far as our protection suite is concerned, we have many tools at our disposal to handle a variety of different situations, but we start with the classic Lightning Greaves.
Equipped creature's going to get Haste and Shroud.
Yeah, you stick that right on that hippo. Then we have a really cool card in Comeuppance.
Yep, you're going to prevent all damage, and damage that would be dealt by creatures is going to be dealt back towards those creatures, and if damage would be dealt from a non-creature source, it's going to be dealt to that source's controller.
That's pretty bonkers to kind of catch somebody out of nowhere. We have a couple counter spells here. We got Dovin's Veto.
You're going to counter a non-creature spell, and it can't be countered.
And Arcane Denial.
You're going to counter a spell, and whoever controlled the spell you counter is going to draw 2 cards at the beginning in the next upkeep, and you're going to also draw a card.
Card draw for everybody. And then we have, why even worry about countering cards when you can play a Null Chamber?
Yep, so you and a target opponent are each going to name a card, and those cards can't be cast.
Crazy. Cure the Crashing Wave.
When you uptick it, you're just going to prevent all damage to and from target permanent, and then also you can use it for ramp and card draw with its second down tick.
As Planeswalkers are, they tend to be pretty utility-based. You could use them in different ways. And then we have some fogs in the classic Fog.
Prevent all combat damage.
Respite. Respite.
You're going to prevent all combat damage, and you're also going to gain life equal to the number of creatures that are attacking.
And then a modular spell. I love my modular spells. We got Dawn Charm.
It's got a couple of things, so you can either prevent all combat damage, regenerate a creature, or counter a spell that's targeting just you.
So yeah, got a little bit of use there. And, fogs are great if people are attacking us, but what if we can convince people not to attack us? Well, we got things like Curse of Verbosity.
It's going to encourage people to attack the cursed player, and when they do, they're going to get to draw a card.
And Edric, Spymaster of Trust.
When creatures deal damage to an opponent, that player's going to draw a card for each creature that dealt damage.
Alright, so this deck is about hugging, about sharing the love, about getting that warm embrace of a big purple hippo. But it still needs to win somehow, right? How do we go about doing that? Alright, we have a couple tools to our disposal when it comes to actually winning the game. And we're just going to go over the pieces here. We'll get more into how to use them later in the video. But we have Suture Priest.
When creatures enter under your control, you're going to gain life. And when creatures enter under your opponent's control, they may lose life.
It's your choice, Lloyd, not theirs. And then we have Reigns of Power.
You're going to switch your board with somebody else's board.
And then, this is a card I really never heard of before this list, Legerdemain.
You're going to exchange control of either 2 artifacts or 2 creatures.
Alright, and then we have a couple, they're the kind of cards that can help you untap stuff if you need it. We have Seedborn Muse.
You're going to untap all your stuff at the beginning of your opponent's upkeeps.
Turnabout.
You can untap all lands, creatures, or artifacts target player controls.
And then last one here is Mind Over Matter.
You can discard a card to either tap or untap target artifact, creature, or land.
And like I said, we'll go a little bit more into how to use these to actually win the game later. We do have one last section of cards to go over. That will be the mana base. But before we go any forward, if you've been enjoying this at all, definitely consider hitting that subscribe button right there underneath the video. We love to have you folks join us. We do deck techs like this all the time. We got funny short skits, and we got just general chit-chat on the Commander format. So love to have you hang out with us going forward. That said, let's get to these lands, and then let's wrap up with how to win with this deck. Alright, as far as our mana base is concerned, we have a pretty simple and straight to the point mana base. For our green-white lands, we have Canopy Vista.
For our first blue-green land, we got Breeding Pool.
And then we have Hinterland Harbor.
And Rejuvenating Springs.
As far as getting some fixing going, we have some ways to fetch out different lands from our deck. We have Windswept Heath.
And Crosenverge.
And then, just to tap for all of our colors, we have the classic Command Tower.
And for some utility lands, we got Reliquary Tower, which you have an unlimited hand size.
So, 2 towers deck. J.R. Tolkien would be pleased. We have Miko Koro, Center of the Sea. This one you can pay and tap it to have everybody draw a card, like a secondary Temple Bell effect.
And last but not least, Ghost Quarter, destroy target land you don't want on the table.
And then as far as our bases are concerned, we have 7 plains,
11 islands,
and 9 forests. And that is the 100 cards of Liz's personal purple hippo, Phelddagrif. But how do we win? Alright, as far as winning the game goes, we have 3 very distinct strategies that we end up taking. The first of which is Mind Over Matter and Temple Bell combo, in which you draw a card with the Temple Bell. Everybody draws a card with the Temple Bell. You can then discard the card you drew to untap the Temple Bell, and then tap the Temple Bell again to have everybody draw a card, and do this over and over and over again until your opponent's deck out. To help ensure that you don't deck yourself out first, we do have Memory's Journey in the deck to kind of shuffle up to 6 cards over the course of the game back into the deck so that you don't draw yourself out first. You just got to be a little bit ahead and you can draw out the rest of the table. If that doesn't end up working, or if that is not an option for whatever reason, we can use Phelddagrif himself to make hippos to give to our opponents while we have Suture Priest on the battlefield, causing them to lose a life for each hippo we give them. Little hippos. And if we want to speed up that process, we can use Rite of Replication or Clever Impersonator to copy the Suture Priest so that we can get more damage in, more loss of life, for each hippo entering the battlefield. And then when all else fails, since we're giving our opponent so many hippos, since they're not going to be attacking us because we're giving them so many hippos, we can use Reigns of Power to just take all the hippos back, swing out at them, and turn these friends into frenemies. So that's it. That is a Phelddagrif deck, and that is how you actually do push a win through with friendly little hippos. If you guys want to see this exact deck in action, Liz actually has played it in a collaboration between Proxy Lab and Neo Royal's House of Pricey Cardboard in the Group-Hug-Ageodon 4 group hugged eggs going at it together. Who's going to win? Link will be in the description below. Definitely check it out. Beyond that, thank you all for joining us today. I love having you folks hang out with us, and we'll see you again in the future.